They told her the reservation didn't exist. They told her she must have made a mistake. Two front desk clerks at the Hargrove Grand Hotel looked at a retired Air Force colonel standing in her dress uniform and decided, before she said a single word, that she didn't belong in the lobby. They were about to find out exactly who they were talking to. The Hargrove Grand sat on the edge of Savannah's historic district, like a jewel that knew its own value. 6 stories of restored antebellum architecture, a rooftop terrace that overlooked the river, and a lobby so polished you could see your reflection in the marble floors. It was the kind of hotel that sent leather-bound welcome packets and used the word curated to describe everything from the cocktail menu to the thread count of the sheets. Colonel Lenora Ashby-Fontaine had earned the right to stay there 3 times over. She was 51 years old, small-framed and precise. The kind of woman who moved through a room like she owned the square footage under her feet. 26 years in the United States Air Force had a way of doing that to a person. She had commanded a logistics squadron of 400 personnel. She had overseen supply chain operations across 3 continents. She had received the Legion of Merit twice, and had retired 8 months ago with full honors at a ceremony attended by a 2-star general who called her the finest officer he had ever served alongside. That evening, she was dressed in her service dress uniform, silver oak leaves on her collar, ribbons stacked 3 rows deep above her left breast pocket. She had come from a veterans recognition dinner 2 blocks away and was now checking into the hotel where her daughter's wedding rehearsal dinner would take place in less than 18 hours. Her daughter, Priya, had booked the Hargrove Grand's private event suite 8 months in advance. The hotel had confirmed the reservation 4 times. Lenora had a printed email in her handbag with the confirmation number highlighted. She did not expect to need it. "Last name Ashby-Fontaine," she said, setting her weekend bag on the polished counter. "Checking in for 2 nights. I also have a reservation for a private dining event tomorrow evening, the Priya Ashby-Fontaine rehearsal dinner, party of 40. The clerk behind the desk, his name tag read Chad, looked at his screen with the expression of a man who had already decided the answer before he started looking. He was young, maybe 25, with the particular brand of confidence that comes not from competence, but from never having been corrected. Chad said, scrolling. "I'm not seeing anything under that name." "Ashby-Fontaine," Lenora repeated. "Ashby-Fontaine." More scrolling. A slight frown. "I'm showing nothing for tonight or tomorrow. Are you sure you made the reservation here? We have a sister property on Broughton Street. Sometimes guests get them mixed up." Lenora looked at him for a long moment. "I am sure," she said evenly. "I have the confirmation number." She reached into her handbag and produced the printed email. She slid it across the marble counter. Chad looked at it, then looked at his screen, then looked at it again with the specific energy of someone trying to make a problem go away by not acknowledging it. "I see the confirmation number," he said, "but it's not pulling up in our system. That can happen when a third-party booking site doesn't fully sync with our reservation engine." "This was booked directly through your hotel's website," Lenora said. "Not a third party." "Well," Chad smiled. It was a practice smile, the kind that said, "I'm being polite," while implying you are being difficult. "Our system is showing the grand suite is occupied for this weekend by another party. And the private dining event calendar is also full." "Full," Lenora repeated. "I'm afraid so. I can look into a refund for whatever deposit was placed, but as far as availability—" "I would like to speak with your manager," Lenora said. "Of course." The smile didn't waver. "Let me get someone for you." He walked to the back office with the unhurried pace of a man who was not particularly concerned. A minute passed. Then 2. Then 5. Lenora stood at the counter with her bag at her feet and her hands clasped behind her back, a posture she had learned at officer candidate school and never lost. Around her, the lobby hummed. A bellhop wheeled luggage past. A couple checked in at the adjacent desk without incident. No one looked at Lenora directly, but she was aware of the sideways glances, the slight pause in conversations. She had been aware of glances like that her entire adult life. When Chad returned, he brought with him a woman in a charcoal blazer, whose name tag read Victoria HRPE, Guest Relations Manager. Victoria had the polished demeanor of someone trained to handle problems by minimizing them. "Colonel," Victoria said, and the title landed in her mouth like something she was auditioning rather than acknowledging. I understand you're having a concern with your reservation. I'm not having a concern, Lenora said. My reservation exists. Your system isn't showing it. I need you to find it. I've reviewed the situation with my colleague, and I can see the confirmation and being presented, but unfortunately our current system doesn't. Your current system, Lenora said, is not my problem. My daughter is getting married tomorrow. The rehearsal dinner for 40 guests is booked in your private dining suite, paid in full, confirmed 4 times. I need that suite, and I need my room. Victoria clasped her hands together. I completely understand the significance of the occasion, and I'm so sorry for this inconvenience. What I can do is offer you a complimentary room at our sister property and look into rescheduling. Rescheduling, Lenora said. The rehearsal dinner. We would work with you to find another date. The wedding is tomorrow. A beat of silence. I understand, Victoria said, and her tone had shifted, sharpening at the edges. But without a confirmed reservation in our system, I'm not in a position to displace a currently booked guest or event. Our policy. I would like to see that policy in writing, Lenora said. I can certainly provide. I would also like the name of the general manager on duty and the corporate contact for the Hargrove Hotel Group. Victoria's expression held, but something behind it flickered. The general manager is unavailable this evening. Then whoever is second in command. That would be me. Lenora looked at her. Then you're the one who's going to be accountable when I explain to 40 guests tomorrow evening, including 2 sitting federal judges, a brigadier general, and the senior senator from Georgia, why their dinner no longer has a venue. The lobby seemed to get slightly quieter. Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it. I need you to look harder, Lenora said. Not loudly, not angrily. With the same calm authority she had used when addressing her squadron the morning after 3 of her people had been killed in a transport accident in Djibouti. The voice that said, I am not asking, I am informing you of what is going to happen. Look at the system, look at the backup records, look at whatever paper trail your reservations team generates, because that confirmation number exists, and the reservation attached to it exists, and I am not moving from this lobby until we have resolved this. Victoria looked at Chad. Chad looked at the floor. Something in the air of the Hargrove Grand lobby shifted. It would get worse before it got better, but the worst part was almost over. Victoria disappeared into the back office for 11 minutes. Lenora counted them. She stood at the counter and did not check her phone, and did not sit down in the waiting area, and did not soften her posture by a single degree. A family with 2 small children passed behind her, the father giving her uniform a quick look and then a small instinctive nod. She returned it without turning around. When Victoria came back, she was not alone. The man beside her was in his mid-40s, heavy-set, with the flushed complexion of someone who had been interrupted during dinner and had not fully processed his irritation yet. His name tag read, Garty Olins, General Manager. So the general manager had been available after all. Colonel, Hollins said, and his version of the title was even less committed than Victoria's. I'm told there's been a confusion about a reservation. There's been no confusion on my end, Lenora said. I booked a room and a private event. Your system is not reflecting it. I'm asking you to resolve that. Hollins looked at the confirmation email on the counter. He looked at it the way people look at a bill they're hoping will add up differently the 3rd time. Our reservations director booked out the grand suite for a corporate conference that came in last month. It's possible your reservation was inadvertently displaced in the process. Inadvertently displaced, Lenora repeated. These things happen when demand is high. I apologize for the inconvenience. The apology is noted. Now I need the suite. Hollins spread his hands in a gesture that was meant to convey helplessness, but landed closer to dismissal. The corporate booking is already in-house. The guests have checked in. I cannot move an occupied event suite. Then you are telling me, Lenora said slowly, that you deliberately overbooked, displaced my daughter's rehearsal dinner without notifying her, and are now asking me to accept that outcome. I'm telling you there was a systems error. You just told me a corporate booking came in and displaced us. That is not a systems error. That is a decision. Hollins's jaw tightened. Colonel, I understand you're frustrated. I'm not frustrated, Lenora said. I'm precise. There's a difference. Be that as it may. His voice had taken on a different quality now. the practiced firmness of a man who had decided to stop being accommodating. I am not in a position to renegotiate arrangements for an event that is currently occupied. I can offer a partial refund, a letter of apology, and a recommendation for alternate venues. What I cannot do is produce a suite that is not available. He said it like that was the end of it, like the situation had a natural conclusion that everyone in the room should recognize. Lenora looked at him for a long moment. "Mr. Hollins," she said, "do you know who owns the Hargrove Hotel Group?" Hollins blinked. "That's not relevant to." "It was acquired 14 months ago," Lenora said. "Purchased by a private equity consortium called Meridian Capital Partners. Meridian's board of directors includes several institutional investors." She opened her handbag. She produced not the confirmation email this time, but a different document, a single page with a letterhead Hollins did not immediately recognize. She laid it on the counter and turned it to face him. "One of those institutional investors," Lenora said, "is the Ashby-Fontaine Family Trust, which has held a 2.3% stake in Meridian since its founding. My late husband established that trust. I am the sole trustee." The lobby had gone very quiet. Hollins looked at the document. It was a trust statement, official, notarized, dated. "I did not come here to use that," Lenora said. "I came here as a guest with a valid reservation to attend my daughter's wedding weekend. But you have spent the last 20 minutes telling me in a variety of polished ways that my reservation doesn't matter, that my daughter's event doesn't matter, and that I should accept being displaced without explanation or adequate remedy." She picked up the confirmation email and placed it on top of the trust document. "So now you have two pieces of paper on this counter. The first one tells you I am a paying guest with a valid booking. The second one tells you I have a financial relationship with the company that signs your paycheck." She looked at him, not with anger, with the absolute airless calm of someone who has spent a career in rooms where the stakes were significantly higher than this one. "Which one would you like to discuss first?" Garrett Hollins did not move for 3 full seconds. Then he picked up the desk phone. What happened in the next 40 minutes was not subtle. 2 assistant managers materialized from somewhere in the building's interior. There were hushed conversations in the back office, 2 of which Lenora could partially hear through the imperfectly soundproofed wall. The phrase, "corporate account," was used 4 times. Legal was mentioned twice. At one point she heard Hollins's voice, stripped of its earlier assurance, saying just find out how it happened. At the 38-minute mark, Victoria returned to the desk with the expression of someone who had survived a minor natural disaster. "Colonel Ashby-Fontaine," she said, "we have resolved the situation. The corporate group has been moved to our secondary conference space, which is actually larger and has been offered to them at no charge as a goodwill gesture. The grand suite is available for your event tomorrow evening. Your room has been upgraded to the garden view suite at no additional charge, and the hotel will be absorbing the full cost of the rehearsal dinner as our apology for the inconvenience." Lenora said nothing for a moment. "Additionally," Victoria continued, and she was choosing her words with visible care now, "Mr. Hollins would like to schedule a call with your office next week to discuss the experience and ensure it doesn't reflect a systemic issue in our guest relations process." "It does reflect a systemic issue," Lenora said, "but we can discuss that next week." She picked up her weekend bag. "My daughter will arrive tomorrow at 4. I'd like someone at the door to greet her by name." "Absolutely," Victoria said. "And have someone send up a bottle of water. Not sparkling. Still." "Of course." Lenora walked toward the elevator without looking back at the desk. The bellhop, a young man who had watched the entire exchange from a discreet distance, hurried forward to take her bag. She let him. "Welcome to the Hargrove Grand, Colonel," he said quietly with an earnestness that had nothing to do with his job description. She looked at him. He was maybe 22, with the kind of face that still registered things as genuinely surprising. "Thank you," she said, and she meant it. Upstairs in the garden view suite, Lenora set her handbag on the bed and sat in the chair by the window. The river was dark outside, broken here and there by the lights of a passing boat. She pulled out her phone and called her daughter. "Mama?" Pryor's voice was easy, still running on pre-wedding energy. "You checked in okay?" "I checked in," Lenora said. "There was a small complication. It's been handled." "What kind of complication?" "Nothing that affects tomorrow." "Mama." Lenora looked at the river. They tried to tell me the reservation didn't exist. A pause on the other end. Then, did they? They did. And now it exists, Lenora said. And the dinner is comp. Another pause, shorter this time, and then Priya laughed, the full-throated laugh that Lenora had been hearing since her daughter was 7 years old and had told the bully on the playground with complete composure that she would be discussing the matter with his parents. "Mama, I swear, you can't go anywhere." "I go everywhere," Lenora said. "That's the point." She could hear voices in the background on Priya's end, her fiancé probably, and the easy noise of family gathered somewhere warm. "Get some sleep," Lenora said. "Tomorrow's going to be beautiful." "It already is," Priya said. "Love you." "Love you more." She set the phone on the nightstand. Outside, a boat moved slowly downriver, its lights dragging long reflections on the water. She watched it until it was gone. She thought about the look on Hollins's face when he read the trust document, the way the certainty drained out of him like air from a punctured tire. She had not enjoyed it exactly, but she had not felt nothing either. 26 years in the Air Force had taught her a lot of things: how to manage a logistics chain across 6 time zones, how to write a casualty notification letter, how to stand in front of 400 people on the worst morning of their professional lives and give them a reason to keep going, and how to walk into a room that does not want to make space for you and make the space anyway. Not with anger, not with volume, but with the quiet, immovable certainty of someone who has earned every inch of the ground they stand on. She did not carry the trust document as a weapon. She carried it because it was true, the same way she carried the ribbons on her chest because they were true. She had not planned to produce it. She had produced it because she was tired, not emotionally tired, but the deeper kind, the kind that accumulates across decades of being told, in 100 different ways by 100 different faces, that her presence required justification. The rehearsal dinner the next evening was everything Priya had imagined. The grand suite glowed with candlelight and the kind of easy laughter that only happens when the people in a room genuinely like each other. The food was extraordinary. The Brigadier General gave a toast that made the groom's mother cry. The 2 federal judges argued good-naturedly about who had known Priya longer and lost the argument to Lenora's older sister, who had been present at the delivery. Hollins appeared briefly at the beginning of the evening, formally dressed, to introduce himself to Priya and welcome the party. He was correct and professional and left quickly. Victoria did not appear at all. Chad, the front desk clerk, was transferred to the Bruton Street property the following Monday, according to a hospitality industry contact of Priya's fiancé who had friends at the hotel. Whether that was discipline or coincidence, no one at the Hargrove Grand confirmed officially. What was confirmed 3 weeks after the wedding was a notice that went out to all Hargrove Hotel Group properties from the corporate office. It was a revised guest relations protocol, 4 pages, focused on reservation verification procedures and what was termed equitable guest engagement standards. A footnote in the covering memo referenced a review initiated following a guest experience concern at the Savannah flagship property. Lenora received a copy forwarded by a member of Meridian's board who thought she might appreciate it. She read it once, filed it, and didn't think about it again for a long time. She had other things to think about. Her daughter's wedding photos, for one. The one the photographer caught of Lenora and Priya in the suite before the ceremony, both of them in profile, looking at something outside the frame. Lenora in her mother of the bride dress, Priya in ivory lace, both of them with the same set to their shoulders, the same angle to their chins, the same quiet certainty in the line of their spines. It sat on Lenora's mantel now, that photograph. Priya had the same one on hers. What Garrett Hollins saw that night as an obstacle was the same thing Priya had seen her entire life as a blueprint. A woman who did not argue, did not plead, did not perform distress for the benefit of people who had decided she was lesser before she opened her mouth. A woman who simply and completely and without apology refused to be made smaller. There are people in this world who mistake a quiet voice for a weak one, who look at someone standing still and assume it means they are without recourse, who look at a face and make a calculation before a single word has been exchanged, and who stake their authority on the accuracy of that calculation. They are usually wrong. And when they are wrong in front of the right person, the correction does not arrive as an explosion. It arrives the way Colonel Lenora Ashby-Fontaine moved through the world, steadily, precisely, and with a kind of authority that does not need to announce itself, because it has already been earned. If this story settled something in you, something you've been carrying around without a name for it, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like this video. Leave a comment below about a time you refused to be made small. And subscribe to Echoes of Justice, because there are more stories like this one, and every single one of them deserves to be told. I keep thinking about the moment Lenora reached into her handbag the second time, not for the confirmation email, for the trust document. That pause, that deliberate choice, tells me everything I need to understand about how cause and consequence actually work in real life. She didn't walk into the Hargrove Grand looking for a fight. She walked in with a valid reservation, a daughter's wedding weekend ahead of her, and 26 years of earned dignity behind her. And when two people behind a marble counter decided, before she finished her first sentence, that she didn't belong there, they set something in motion that they couldn't take back, not because the universe was watching, because they were wrong, and the truth of that wrongness was sitting right there in her bag. That's the thing about integrity that people underestimate. It's not just a moral quality, it's a practical one. Lenora had lived her entire adult life building something real, real service, real sacrifice, real investment, real standing. None of it was performance. All of it was documented. So when Hollins looked at her and calculated that she was someone he could dismiss, he wasn't just making an ethical error. He was making a factual one. And facts have a way of correcting themselves, with or without your cooperation. What I find myself sitting with is how she handled the gap, the 20 minutes between when she was told no and when she produced the second document. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't perform outrage for the lobby. She stood at that counter with her hands clasped behind her back, and she waited, not passively, but with the active, unhurried patience of someone who knows exactly what they're holding. That kind of steadiness doesn't come from a good day. It comes from years of deciding over and over to meet hard moments with your mind instead of your adrenaline. That's something I think about when my own patience runs short. What am I building in the quiet spaces between the moments that test me, that I'll be able to reach for when I need it? And then there's Priya, the daughter who laughed when she heard what happened, not with bitterness but with recognition. She'd been watching her mother her whole life. She knew that posture. She'd inherited it. What Lenora gave her wasn't just a beautifully arranged rehearsal dinner. It was a blueprint for how to exist in spaces that would rather you didn't, with your spine straight and your documentation current and your voice at a volume that doesn't need to compete with the room because it already owns it. The correction Hollins received that night wasn't punishment. It was proportion. He extended exactly as much respect as he thought the situation required, and the situation turned out to require considerably more than he'd budgeted for. That's how it works, not always as quickly or as cleanly as it did in that Savannah lobby. But the math tends to balance eventually. What stays with me is this. Lenora could have fought louder and won faster and made a scene that would have felt, in the moment, like justice. She chose differently. She chose to be precise, and in being precise, she changed a hotel policy, protected future guests she would never meet, and gave her daughter a wedding weekend that began with a lesson more lasting than any floral arrangement. That's what I want to carry with me. Not the satisfaction of being proven right, but the discipline to stay clear-headed long enough to let the truth speak for itself.